Waking up with a faint groan, memories of the previous night begin to rush back in hazy pieces. In the darkness, she had hesitated, questioning if he could truly take responsibility for what was about to happen. With a gentle smile, she had leaned in, willing to let go of her usual restraint for the first time. He had accepted her plea without hesitation, pulling her close and whispering that he would take full responsibility. Wrapped in his warmth, the outside world seemed to fade completely. When the morning light finally filters into the quiet room, she stirs lazily, murmuring a sleep-filled endearment as she reaches out. But the sudden realization of her own words jolts her awake. Gasping, her eyes fly open to find herself lying right beside a sleeping stranger. She stares in disbelief at his incredibly handsome face, his pale skin, and the defined muscles of his chest. Panic surges through her as the reality of the situation hits. Heart racing, she scrambles out of bed, desperately looking for her things, while trying to make sense of this madness. She frantically searches the room for her clothes, only to freeze when she spots her dress lying on a nearby table, completely tattered. Realizing the state of her torn nightgown and her aching body, panic sets in as she tries to piece together the chaotic memories of the previous night. Deciding to flee immediately, she leaves behind a polite thank you note and some coins before slipping away, leaving the sleeping stranger to wake up alone. Back in safety, Evelyn Florence reflects on her quiet life as the daughter of a count, where she was supposed to live a simple, peaceful existence. But that peaceful life is completely shattered by the realization of who she spent the night with, leaving her trembling in absolute dread. Back at the villa, the mysterious man wakes up to read her parting message, his crimson eyes narrowing at the bizarre note she left behind. Realizing the gravity of her mistake, Evelyn remembers her past life and the fact that she has reincarnated inside a romance novel. In that story, the romance centers around Crown Prince Ian and Princess Raina, a tale she was meant to observe from the sidelines. But the man she just bedded is Duke Cale Hardian, the novel's notorious psychopathic villain, known for his cruel and ruthless nature. Terrified by the villain's notoriously ruthless reputation, Evelyn desperately recalls her vow to never cross paths with any of the main characters. Yet, the awful reality of her situation sinks in as she sits trembling before him, unable to escape his suffocating presence. With his striking but chilling crimson eyes and quiet elegance, he is exactly the dangerous man described in the original story. Watching him calmly sip his tea, Evelyn falters under his silence, offering a hasty and desperate apology, without even knowing her crime. When he demandingly asks what she thinks she did wrong, she clutches her dress tightly, trying to make sense of the previous night. She remembers attending the banquet with her fiancé, Edwin, only to wander into the garden and catch him red-handed with another woman. Breaking off their engagement on the spot, she had returned to the hall alone, in a fit of rage to down her very first glass of strong whiskey. Admitting her memory completely vanished after that drink, she nervously suggests they look at their night together as a meaningless one-night stand. But the Duke's expression turns incredibly dark and imposing as he coldly asks if she always comforts people in such an intimate manner. Cale reminds Evelyn of her own words from that night, accusing her of luring him in with sweet promises, only to treat their intimacy as a meaningless mistake. With a chilling smile, he questions her dismissive attitude, leaving Evelyn to desperately wonder if she should have at least offered him a hangover cure before fleeing. Fumbling for words, Evelyn offers to make amends with whatever compensation he desires, only for the Duke to present a rolled-up document. To her utter shock, the scroll is a marriage contract, declaring that she must become his duchess and marry him in a month's time. Looking down in complete disbelief, she realizes the official agreement is already signed with his name, leaving her absolutely no room to negotiate. Kale softly explains that he had saved his chastity for his future wife, meaning she must now take full responsibility for claiming it. Leaning in dangerously close, he touches her face and whispers her name, sending a shiver of pure dread straight through her as she gasps in terror, faced with his suffocating presence. An ominous premonition flashes through Evelyn's mind, leaving her utterly convinced that this ruthless villain is going to kill her. When the Duke calmly suggests holding a formal family meeting in 2 weeks, Evelyn is frozen in shock. Staring down, she tries to process the sudden reality of a marriage proposal she never expected. Looking closer, she is horrified to recognize her own handwriting on the marriage contract. She has absolutely no memory of signing it, leaving her panicking in silence. Summoning her courage, she questions if he is truly serious about marriage just because they shared a single night. The Duke merely stares back with a quiet, unyielding intensity. The Duke asks if she expected him to give himself away for nothing in return. Evelyn firmly protests, insisting that a relationship built on compensation is entirely wrong. He calmly points out that her parents are away and will return in 2 weeks, making his timeline perfect. Shocked, Evelyn wonders how he already knows everything about her family's schedule. Struggling to find an escape, she explains that her recent engagement just ended. Announcing a sudden marriage now would ruin her social reputation and surely outrage her parents. Hoping to delay the marriage, she quickly suggests a compromise. Instead of canceling the contract outright, she pleads for them to have a dating period first. To her surprise, a 1-month dating period is already in the contract. But Evelyn objects, arguing it is far too short for someone who has never dated, desperately trying to buy time. She nervously suggests that they spend proper time getting to know one another first, hoping he will agree to extend their arrangement. The Duke sees right through her, warning that he is not a patient man and she should drop any schemes to buy time. Evelyn freezes, feeling as if he can read her mind. Evelyn quickly denies it, but under his piercing stare, she tentatively asks for 3 months instead. When he counters with 2, she joyfully realizes her stalling tactic actually worked. With the 2-month arrangement decided, the Duke calmly announces he will clear his schedule tomorrow. Evelyn is left completely bewildered, wondering what he could possibly have planned so soon. Before she can process his words, Kale suddenly leans in, trapping her against the sofa. Blushing furiously, Evelyn freezes as his face comes dangerously close, her heart pounding in sheer panic. He tells her it is time for them to finally get acquainted, reminding her that this was her own request. Under his intense gaze, she is left entirely speechless. Back in her bedroom that night, Evelyn clutches her pillow in despair. She realizes that instead of finding a way out of the contract, she has somehow agreed to date him. She remembers the original novel's plot, where Kale used a contract lover to block marriage proposals, only to dispose of her when the true princess arrived. Horrified, Evelyn realizes she has stepped right into that doomed role. Determined to survive, Evelyn whimpers on her bed, calling out to her maid, Emily. But Emily merely looks on, entirely exasperated by her mistress's dramatic distress. Emily demands to know what happened with the Duke, recalling how suspicious it was when Evelyn returned home late that morning. Hearing the story, the maid bluntly tells her lady she is the absolute worst. Evelyn pleads for her maid to take her side, but Emily chides her for running away after their night together. Evelyn weakly protests she was drunk and remembers nothing, leaving Emily to ask what she plans to do now. Emily points out that since the contract is already signed, Evelyn will get in massive trouble with her father if she breaks it. But then, she offers a glimmer of hope, suggesting there might be another way out of this mess. Emily reveals her plan. Evelyn just needs to make the Duke dump her first. Hearing this, Evelyn's despair instantly vanishes, and she praises her maid's brilliant idea. The first step of their scheme is to observe Kale during their date the next day. Emily is confident they can easily find something the Duke dislikes to use to their advantage. The next morning arrives, and Emily helps her mistress prepare. Evelyn is dressed and ready to put their plan into action when word arrives that the Duke has pulled up. Cale stands waiting by his carriage, looking as handsome and imposing as ever. Evelyn takes a deep breath and steps forward, determined to make this date the beginning of the end of their arrangement. Inside the carriage, Evelyn vows to uncover every detail about Cale so she can annoy him. But before she can even settle in, he stops her, pointing out that she isn't sitting in her designated seat. Before she can ask where she should sit, Cale takes her hand and pulls her firmly onto his lap. Stunned, Evelyn finds herself wrapped in his arms as he casually tells her she is right where she belongs. Flustered by the sudden physical closeness, Evelyn stammers and asks why he is moving so fast. She admits his broad arms are comfortable, but protests that they are moving too quickly. Cale merely leans in closer and whispers a teasing reminder of their night together, asking if she didn't enjoy being on top of him. The bold comment leaves Evelyn completely speechless and blushing. Evelyn finds herself completely caught off guard as the Duke suddenly pulls her close. Overwhelmed by the intimacy, she softly asks him to put her down, but he simply refuses. Safely hidden inside the moving carriage, Evelyn tries to protest their proximity, questioning if this is appropriate. Instead of pulling away, the Duke smiles and teases her about their closeness. Flustered by his teasing, Evelyn immediately calls him out, accusing him of having hidden intentions. While he denies it, he watches her closely, captivated by her expressions. Her worries about the location mean nothing to him. Holding her face gently, the Duke kisses her again, telling her to relax against him.
By the time the carriage finally reaches their destination, Evelyn is left completely out of breath. While the Duke remains perfectly composed, she can only complain about his overwhelming stamina.
Recalling rumors about how inexperienced men kiss, Evelyn grows suspicious. She asks if this is truly his first time, but he calmly insists that it is. When Evelyn continues to doubt his claims, pointing out that first kisses are normally much clumsier, the Duke remains entirely unfazed by her skepticism. He slyly attributes his skill to pure natural talent, leaving Evelyn flustered and completely at a loss for words. Desperate to regain control of the situation, Evelyn quickly covers his mouth. She insists that their agreement to get acquainted was strictly emotional, not physical. To enforce this, Evelyn declares a strict ban on any future kissing. However, the Duke counters by asking why she still addresses him so formally after their intimate night together. She hesitatingly admits that she simply couldn't bring herself to use his name, pleading with him not to get angry. Though he claims he isn't upset, his dark gaze suggests otherwise. She confesses that he is actually quite intimidating. Fearing his reaction, she trembles slightly as they stand near the carriage, waiting to see how he will respond. Despite his dark aura, the Duke insists he is not mad. Evelyn can only sweat nervously, completely unconvinced by his terrifying expression. Taking her hand, the Duke gently commands her to forget titles and address him solely by his name. Flustered, she reluctantly whispers the name Cale. Evelyn's heart pounds wildly at the sight of his striking looks. Shaking her head to clear her thoughts, she tries to focus on figuring out his personal preferences instead of getting distracted. Suddenly, a familiar and mouth-watering scent catches her attention. She looks over to see a bustling bakery crowded with local townspeople. Evelyn gazes longingly at the bakery's delicious, exclusive waffles, completely unable to hide her excitement. Noticing her eager expression, Cale asks if she would like to try one, catching her off guard. Though Evelyn shyly asks for just a single bite, Cale insists on fetching it himself so she can rest. Watching him walk away, her maid Emily whispers that the Duke is surprisingly thoughtful, leaving Evelyn flustered and blushing. Despite his kindness, Evelyn is gripped by panic, convinced his gentle behavior is a trap to dispose of her later. She nervously admits to Emily that she only brought her along because being alone with him is terrifying. Suddenly, a harsh and familiar voice interrupts their conversation, calling out her name. Evelyn turns around in absolute shock, immediately recognizing the unwelcome guest standing right before her. It is her unfaithful ex-fiancé, Edwin, who angrily demands to know where she has been roaming. Evelyn coldly replies that their engagement is over, but he refuses to listen and roughly grabs her arm. Edwin desperately pleads with her to hear him out, claiming that his affair was a genuine mistake. He holds her shoulders tightly, begging for a chance to explain himself. Meanwhile, completely unaware of the sudden drama unfolding, Kale stands patiently in the long bakery line, waiting to buy the waffle she wanted. Evelyn's fiancé holds her tightly, trying to explain away his betrayal as a simple mistake. But Evelyn has had enough, refusing to be swayed by his excuses any longer. She coldly informs him that their engagement is officially over, having already sent a letter to her parents. Her fiancé stands frozen, completely caught off guard by her sudden defiance. He refuses to accept the breakup, but Evelyn fiercely points a finger at his chest. She reminds him of his public audacity, fooling around with another lady at a party they attended together. Her sharp warning draws the attention of nearby onlookers, who begin to whisper among themselves. Left red-faced and embarrassed in public, the fiancé's pride is instantly shattered. As they argue, a familiar name slips from her fiancé's lips. Evelyn freezes in shock, her mind racing as she senses a dark, imposing presence drawing near from behind. Her fiancé quickly shifts tactics, pulling her close with a dismissive laugh. He warns her to think of the gossip, insisting that an engagement cannot be broken on mere feelings. Footsteps echo on the pavement, cutting through the tense atmosphere. Both Evelyn and her fiancé turn in surprise as a powerful figure steps into view, interrupting their heated argument. It is Duke Cale Hardion himself. He regards the fiancé with a cold, mocking gaze, comparing his desperate protests to the annoying barking of a stray dog. Although Cale holds a surprisingly cute waffle, his expression turns terrifyingly dark. Staring directly at the fiancé's hand on Evelyn's shoulder, he demands that he release her immediately. The fiancé is left trembling with confusion and fear, wondering why the high-ranking Duke would suddenly choose to intervene in their private family affair. Seeking protection, Evelyn ducks behind the Duke, tearfully venting about her fiancé's public harassment. Cale listens quietly, calmly handing his waffles to her as she details every insult and threat she just endured. As Evelyn lists all of Edwin's offenses, Edwin stands frozen in sheer terror. Sensing the Duke's silent, suffocating rage beginning to boil over, he realizes he has crossed a line he can never walk back. Cale gently asks Evelyn to step back for a moment. Confused, she holds the warm pastries, completely unaware of the dark intentions brewing behind the Duke's polite request. With a terrifyingly cold smile, Cale explains he needs to have a private word with Edwin. Sensing danger, Evelyn quickly retreats with her maid, begging the Duke not to resort to violence. Left alone with the trembling young lord, Cale grabs him by the collar, towering over him with a chilling threat. He warns Edwin that he detests delays, leaving the young man paralyzed with dread. By the time Evelyn returns to the safety of her bedroom, the exhaustion of the day finally catches up to her. She collapses to the floor, her mind still racing with anxiety. She vividly imagines Cale's terrifying blood-soaked smile, realizing that getting on his bad side could seal her doom. Even though he helped her today, the Duke remains a highly dangerous man. Looking at the gifts she brought back, she despairs over failing to learn anything about Cale's actual preferences. She realizes that while she might have escaped Edwin, she is still at the mercy of the ultimate villain. Evelyn receives an invitation from her friend Kate at the house of Purell. Emily asks if she's going to gossip about romance again, sparking a sudden idea in Evelyn's mind. Realizing Kate is a self-proclaimed dating expert with plenty of experience, Evelyn decides to seek her counsel. She hopes to analyze Kate's advice to find a way to get the Duke to dump her. Evelyn excitedly plans to cancel the engagement, confident she has found a loophole. While Emily worries for her lady's safety, Evelyn remains determined to study the mysteries of a man's heart. Clenching her fists, she resolves to take this chance, hoping to decode the secrets of romance once and for all. However, when Evelyn arrives, she finds the supposed dating master sobbing uncontrollably over a fresh breakup. Evelyn watches in sheer disbelief as Kate vows to curse her ex-boyfriend forever. Joining the tea party, Evelyn asks their friend Dorothy why Kate is in such tears, completely bewildered by the sudden heartbreak of her supposed advisor. Kate tearfully reveals she only asked her ex to report his daily meals, his locations, and to limit his words with other ladies. Hearing this list of demands, the onlookers realize just how suffocating it must have been. Kate recalls how her ex-fiancé left her, calling her unbearably clingy. As Kate wails over the insult, a sudden realization strikes Evelyn like a bolt of lightning. Evelyn realizes that acting like an overly clingy, suffocating partner might be the perfect way to make Duke Kale break off their engagement. Listening to her friends discuss how excessive clinginess can drive a partner away, a sudden realization sparks in Evelyn's mind. Perhaps being overbearing is the key to her freedom. Quietly plotting her strategy, she tallies up all the pestering questions she must ask. But as the other ladies turn the attention back to her own relationship, she nervously laughs it off and makes a swift escape. Determined to start her plan without delay, Evelyn halts her carriage and gives a surprising new destination. She instructs her driver to take her straight to the Duke's residence. Arriving at the Hardian estate, Evelyn is surprised to find it looks remarkably ordinary. Yet, the chilling rumors of the household's past, filled with talk of taxidermy and dark secrets, still linger in her mind. Even the tales of a duchess bathing in blood to preserve her youth feel hauntingly real as she steps inside. Steeling her nerves, Evelyn enters the grand, quiet hallway, preparing herself for the worst. Instead of a monster, she is greeted by a polite young man introducing himself as Hugo, the Duke's personal aide. His warm, blushing welcome immediately softens the tense atmosphere of the mansion. Relieved that the Duke's aide is far gentler than she feared, Evelyn feels a pang of embarrassment for assuming the household would be sinister. When Hugo explains that the Duke gave strict orders to bring her to him immediately, Evelyn hesitates, wondering if she has arrived too suddenly. Despite her mounting anxiety, she reminds herself of the high stakes. Breaking her engagement is the only way to escape her fate, even if it means angering the Duke. Stealing a glance at her notebook, she reviews her plan to act like an overbearing, obsessive partner, expecting him to report every meal and destination until he grows sick of her. Caught red-handed by Hugo while plotting her scheme, Evelyn quickly hides the book behind her back and nervously denies having any academic interests. Hugo offers a warm smile, admitting he was simply curious about what kind of person she was before knocking on the massive study doors. A cold voice commands them to enter. Taking a deep breath, Evelyn steps inside the grand study alone, urging herself to stay composed. Duke Kale looks up from his paperwork, his gaze sharp and unreadable. Seeking to annoy him, Evelyn immediately asks him for a favor, only to receive a blunt refusal. Stunned by his quick rejection, she soon realizes it is due to how she addressed him, prompting her to correct herself in order to speak with him. Evelyn gathers her courage and addresses him directly. Blushing, she stammers an apology for raising her voice, but Kale quietly waits for her to continue. Apologizing for the interruption, she prompts him about their courtship, setting the stage for her scheme. When Kale asks what she means by proceeding properly, Evelyn prepares herself to deliver her first demanding request. Explaining that devoted couples share everything, she demands that he report his daily schedule, destinations, and companions to her every single day. As she speaks, she notices Kale's expression stiffening. Determined to push further, she demands detailed daily updates on every single meal he eats. She insists on knowing exactly what he consumed and how it tasted, hoping this pettiness will drive him away. Putting on her most sweet and innocent face, she claims it is all to deepen their mutual understanding. She clasps her hands, waiting to see if her clingy act is working. Her demands escalate to insisting he sacrifice sleep to contact her. But under Kale's cold, intense glare, Evelyn's confidence instantly shatters, and she begins frantically walking back her words. To her surprise, Kale simply asks if that is all she wants. Flustered by his calm response, Evelyn nervously stammers that there are no other requests for the time being. Watching Kale's unreadable expression, Evelyn anxiously wonders if he is angry. Yet, she secretly hopes her plan to act like an overbearing partner has succeeded in pushing him away. Holding a freshly delivered envelope, Evelyn is absolutely convinced that her engagement has come to a sudden end. Fearing she appalled Kale with her obsessive display, she prepares herself for his disgust, imagining his cold, executing gaze from their last encounter. Steeling herself to play the role of a gracefully heartbroken maiden, she slides the letter open, only to freeze in utter bewilderment at the very first line. Instead of a cancellation, Kale writes to apologize for his sudden departure, assuring her that her requests are already being put into action. True to his word, he sends over a mountain of official documents and council minutes, leaving Evelyn buried under stacks of unexpected paperwork. The level of detail is staggering, cataloging every single calorie, meal ingredient, and source from his entire day, right down to the chicken. A chilling postscript reveals his true intentions, stating that further measures are needed to ensure smoother communication between them. He assigns a personal knight to serve as their permanent liaison, tracking her movements whenever she leaves the estate. Peering out her window, Evelyn realizes with horror that this liaison is already stationed outside. Her attempt to dump him has backfired, landing her under constant surveillance. Evelyn is left reeling, realizing her carefully planned escape has completely failed. In her frustration, she tosses the letters into the air, while Emily watches her with growing concern. Still, she cannot help but respect Kale's meticulous organization, crawling across the floor to gather the scattered pages so she can read them closely. A document detailing the acquisition of the Western mines catches her eye. Emily mentions that the mines are barren and abandoned, making the purchase seem entirely foolish. But Evelyn remembers the original novel. In a few years, highly valuable magic stones will be discovered there, along with other properties Kale is currently buying up. She is utterly amazed by Kale's foresight. Without any knowledge of the future, he behaves like a true mastermind, and Evelyn finds herself completely captivated by his genius. However, her awe turns to sheer embarrassment as she reads his logs detailing a post-training bath routine, complete with rosehip oil. She blushes deeply, clutching the pages to her chest. Since her clingy routine failed, Evelyn decides she must escalate her tactics. Ignoring Emily's doubts, she resolves to make her next move by intruding upon his most private space. Evelyn resolves to push Kale to his limits by invading his most private sanctuary. The next morning, she arrives at the Hardian ducal manor far earlier than expected. The liaison knight, Hugo, greets her with surprise, mentioning Kale had planned to pick her up himself. Evelyn quickly spins a lie, claiming she simply could not bear to wait another moment to see her fiancé. Seizing the opportunity, Evelyn demands to be taken to Kale's bedchamber immediately. She plays up her clingy persona to the absolute limit, leaving Hugo flustered and shocked by her boldness. Emphasizing her role as his future wife, Evelyn learns the location of Kale's private room. Leaving Hugo behind, she hurries down the grand corridor to put her plan into action. Steeling herself for the confrontation, Evelyn reaches the double doors. Apologizing in her heart for the deception, She throws them open to surprise Kale in his unguarded state. Bursting into the room with an overly affectionate declaration, Evelyn freezes mid-sentence. The sight before her completely derails her train of thought. Kale stands before her, fresh from a bath. Water drips down his collarbone and chest, his damp hair framing a direct, intense gaze that catches her completely off guard. Flustered by his state of undress, Evelyn panics. She turns on her heel, slams the door shut, and screams an apology through the wood, her plan backfiring once again. Pressing her back against the corridor wall, Evelyn tries to catch her breath, utterly mortified by Kale's unexpected state of undress. Nothing is going according to her plan. Before she can flee, the door suddenly swings open. Caught completely off guard, Evelyn loses her footing and begins to fall backward. But Kale is quick to react. He wraps his arms securely around her, catching her mid-air and lifting her clean off her feet. Gasping a quiet thank you, Evelyn freezes as Kale draws her closer. He leans in, his damp hair brushing against her cheek as he whispers her name. With a low, quiet murmur, Kale asks where she thinks she is running to, keeping her firmly trapped in his hold. As Evelyn tries to slip away, a low voice stops her in her tracks. Turning around, she finds herself face to face with a very close, very disheveled Kale. Desperately trying to explain that she isn't running away, Evelyn's mind races when she realizes Kale is wearing nothing but a loose robe. Before she can protest, he effortlessly lifts her into his arms. Evelyn panics, demanding to know where he is taking her. Kale simply responds that they are heading to the bed, ignoring her flustered pleas to be put down immediately. She questions his choice of destination, but her protests are cut short as Kale gently deposits her onto the soft mattress, trapping her beneath him. Hovering over her, Kale's gaze softens with a teasing intensity. He asks if she stormed into his bedroom for this very reason, leaving Evelyn completely flustered as she tries to claim it is all a misunderstanding. Kale reaches down, sliding his fingers between hers to intertwine their hands. He reminds her of her own words, recalling that she claimed to have come simply because she missed him. He presses a soft kiss to her neck, sending a shiver through her as his grip tightens on her shoulder. He whispers, asking just how much she truly missed him. Evelyn squeezes her eyes shut, fighting the rising warmth in her cheeks. She realizes with a jolt of panic just how easily she could fall for him again if this continues. Kale watches her closely, holding her necklace, as she hesitatingly admits she missed him just a little. Sitting on the edge of the bed, she looks away, while he gazes back with a softened expression. Desperate to clear the air, Evelyn quickly tries to call the situation a misunderstanding, but Kale draws even closer, leaving her completely at his mercy as the night passes. By morning, Evelyn sits up in bed, completely exhausted. Refusing to let her leave hungry, Kale patiently feeds her, ignoring her protests as he helps her regain her strength. Though she begrudgingly accepts the food, her irritation only grows. During the carriage ride back, she silently fumes over Kale's teasing claim that she was the one who initiated their closeness. Upon arriving, Evelyn playfully vents her frustration by hitting his chest. But her anger quickly melts into a deep blush when Kale bluntly asks if she truly disliked their first night together. Before parting, Kale gently kisses her cheek and admits he was genuinely happy she came to see him. Evelyn is left standing alone, clutching her face in stunned silence as he walks away. Back in her own room that evening, a deeply embarrassed Evelyn faceplants onto a bench. Her maid questions her choice of visiting Kale's bedroom, forcing Evelyn to defend her desperate strategy. She complains that Hugo must have been in on the scheme, since he did nothing to stop her. Evelyn laments that her plan to make Kale push her away by clinging to him has completely backfired. Evelyn lies awake, unable to forget Kale's parting words. She wonders if he truly has feelings for her, or if she is misinterpreting his kindness. Brushing off her maid's concern, Evelyn tells herself not to be foolish enough to fall for Kale, knowing he could change his mind at any moment. With her family set to return in just a week, she feels the pressure mounting. She must find a way to quietly resolve this situation before they arrive. Meanwhile, Kale's aide confirms that the preparations are complete. They have drafted a grand announcement naming Lady Evelyn as the Duke's first love and partner. The marriage notice, meant for the Imperial Gazette, declares that the two will wed in late spring, sealing their engagement for the entire empire to see. Kale pauses, anticipating Evelyn's shocked reaction. He knows she was likely scheming to run away with her clever mind, but he is already steps ahead. With a confident smirk, Kale orders the notice to be published first thing tomorrow. He intends to make sure escaping him won't be that simple. As morning light filters into the quiet room, Evelyn's peaceful sleep is abruptly shattered by angry shouting outside her door, demanding her immediate presence. Sitting up in bed with alarm, Evelyn looks toward her panicked maid, who rushes in to warn her that her father, the Count, has unexpectedly returned. Downstairs, her furious father immediately confronts her, demanding to know what shameful trouble she has caused the moment he turned his back on the mansion. He shoves a newspaper into her hands. To her utter disbelief, the front page dramatically details a passionate marriage proposal from Duke Hardian, painting an embarrassing, romanticized picture of their relationship. As her father accuses her of bringing shame to the family name so soon after her broken engagement, Evelyn quietly protests that none of this was her fault. Her younger brother, Jacqueline, mockingly chimes in to accuse her of ruining their reputation, prompting their father to immediately silence Evelyn and scold her for staying out all night. Hurt by the blatant unfairness, Evelyn bites her lip and wonders why she is always the one singled out for blame, while her brother's wild nights are completely ignored. As Count Florence continues his harsh reprimand, Evelyn's stepmother urges her to simply swallow her pride and beg for forgiveness, rather than defend her actions, offering no comfort to the distressed young woman.
Struggling to hold back her tears, Evelyn is painfully reminded of her family's cold indifference. She realizes they will always demand her absolute submission to preserve their own status, regardless of the truth.
Faced with their overwhelming cruelty, she quietly stands there as tears stream down her face, feeling entirely isolated in a household where no one has ever bothered to listen to her side of the story. Suddenly, a heavy warm coat is draped over her trembling shoulders. Duke Hardian himself has entered the room, stepping forward to protectively shield her from her family's anger. Her father and stepmother are left completely speechless by the Duke's sudden and uninvited presence, while Evelyn looks up at him with wide, tear-filled eyes, unable to comprehend why he is here. With calm authority, Kale addresses the stunned room, declaring that the broken engagement was not Evelyn's fault at all, before boldly announcing his intention to marry into the Florence family. The confrontation quickly shifts to the dining hall, where a heavy, suffocating silence hangs over the table as the family and their noble guest sit down for an incredibly tense meal. The quiet is shattered when Kale casually remarks that the newspapers failed to capture Evelyn's true beauty. Her father chokes in surprise, while a flustered Evelyn feels secretly grateful for his defense. Evelyn braces herself, fully expecting her status-obsessed father to object to the marriage in order to save face. But the room remains quiet under the Duke's intense, intimidating gaze. Acknowledging the tension, Kale smoothly offers a proposal to settle their doubts, asking for just 1 month to prove he is a suitable groom for Evelyn. Kale surprises the entire room by announcing his intention to take groom lessons, rather than expecting Evelyn to change. As the family gapes in disbelief, he calmly asserts that a husband must prepare himself to suit his wife's tastes. Evelyn is left completely speechless when Kale requests that she live with him at the Duke's estate during their trial month. Horrified by the sudden proposal, she desperately hopes her father will step in and object. To Evelyn's absolute dismay, her stepmother eagerly approves of the arrangement without a second thought. She immediately asks when the lessons will begin, leaving Evelyn petrified like a stone statue as her family sells her out. Just 2 days later, Evelyn can only weep in despair as her stepmother and maids excitedly pack her luggage. She is deeply hurt by how eagerly her family wants to get rid of her. As the carriage departs, Evelyn sits in stubborn, unhappy silence, crossing her arms defensively. Sensing her distress, Cale looks over and softly apologizes for startling her, admitting he should have considered her feelings more carefully. He gently reaches out to wipe away her tears, promising that she can return home early if she cooperates. Although his touch is surprisingly tender, Evelyn remains deeply anxious about what lies ahead. When the carriage finally arrives at the Duke's massive estate, Cale takes her hand to guide her out. The maids bow in unison, announcing that all preparations for the young lady have been completed. But as Evelyn looks up, her brief relief instantly turns to cold dread. Standing before her is a long line of estate servants, all of whom stare down at her with their faces completely shrouded in ominous, terrifying shadows. Shaken by the ominous atmosphere, Evelyn looks at the towering estate in sheer panic. The dark, unwelcoming gaze of the servants leaves her wondering how she will ever survive a whole month in such a terrifying place. Inside the Duke's grand estate, a polite maid named Mary greets Evelyn with a warm smile, introducing herself as the head of the household staff. Evelyn responds with a polite but hesitant greeting. Mary guides Evelyn to the annex where she will be staying, explaining that the mansion was designed to reflect the tastes of the previous Duchess. But as Evelyn looks around, she's greeted not by elegance, but by dark, unsettling portraits of skulls and bones. Her polite smile falters in the face of such grim decor. The tour only grows more unsettling as they enter the bathroom, which is adorned with Gothic gargoyles and skull-shaped candles. Mary cheerfully explains that the previous Duchess custom ordered every detail. When Mary describes how the Duchess used to call young maids to attend to her baths, Evelyn's imagination runs wild. She can only picture a grim, bloody scene in the tub. Trying to keep her composure, Evelyn nervously plays along, hoping her stay will be short. But Mary's friendly expression shifts into something far more intense as she gently corrects her. The maid casually reminds her that she is to become the next Duchess, meaning she will remain in this Gothic mansion forever. Evelyn feels instantly trapped, like a bird locked in a dark cage. Later, the Duke enters the room to speak with Evelyn. Though she is exhausted and still on edge, she tries to maintain her composure in his presence. He announces that they must establish rules for their upcoming groom lessons. Laying out a massive schedule, he hands her a dense, overwhelming list of instructions on how to become the perfect husband. Evelyn looks over the intense rules for her groom lessons. While she stands overwhelmed, the Duke clarifies that outside of basic boundaries, she is entirely free to do as she pleases. To support her new freedom, he presents a massive, ornate chest filled with her maintenance allowance, telling her to spend it without hesitation. Opening the heavy lid, Evelyn gasps at the absolute mountain of gold coins. Even though the Duke claims he lowered the amount so she wouldn't feel burdened, it is still an unimaginably vast sum. Staring at the glittering coins, a sudden realization hits her. If she squanders this entire fortune in a single day, perhaps the Duke will realize she is completely unfit to be the next Duchess and call off the engagement. Her scheming is interrupted when the Duke announces that they must first tailor her new wardrobe. Out of nowhere, the energetic Madame Antoine appears, leaving Evelyn completely startled by her sudden presence. With a quick clap of her hands, the designer has racks of stunning, highly sought-after dresses brought into the room. Evelyn is instantly captivated by the beautiful garments. She wonders how they managed to secure dresses that are normally impossible to obtain. While she admires the collection, the Duke quietly takes his leave to let the women work in peace, What follows is a whirlwind-fitting session as Evelyn tries on one breathtaking gown after another. She transforms from a dramatic dark crimson dress to an elegant white gown, and finally, to a lovely pink outfit with a matching hat. Madame Antoine is so thrilled by how perfectly every dress fits that she begins tossing even more onto the overwhelmed girl. Safe under a pile of silk and lace, a sudden decision is made to buy every single dress. Evelyn hopes her dress fitting has successfully drained her allowance, but she is told that Kale has already prepaid for everything. Her grand plan to spend the money is instantly ruined. Staring at the massive collection of paid-for gowns, Evelyn realizes her dress boutique strategy has failed. She needs a new way to blow through her fortune. Determined to succeed, she decides to target a jewelry store instead. But before she can even set out, a jeweler, a shoemaker, and a bag designer arrive at her door, ready to serve her. Buried under an avalanche of customized luxury goods, Evelyn struggles to find any way to spend her own money. Every single merchant has already been compensated by Kale. Desperate to outdo the Duke's foresight, Evelyn resolves to leave the mansion. She grabs Emily, determined to spend her allowance in the bustling city streets. Her grand excursion to the market ends in a quiet defeat. After wandering through shops already prepaid by Kale, the only thing she can buy is a couple of chicken skewers. Evelyn can only lament Kale's overwhelming preparation, rendering her attempts at wild spending completely useless. Her dream of proving herself unfit to be Duchess remains out of reach. Resigned to her fate, she decides to just enjoy her street food by the park fountain. But as she takes a bite, she senses a quiet presence watching her. Looking down, she finds a young boy staring longingly at her food. He kneels beside her bench, his eyes fixed on the delicious chicken skewer. Staring at the boy's dark hair and striking red eyes, Evelyn is struck by a strange sense of familiarity. While practicing his swordsmanship, the Duke receives word that Lady Evelyn has left for the square. He wipes away his sweat, quietly asking for the next report as he prepares for the day's tasks. His attendant reveals that young Master Karen has once again escaped the academy. The boy left behind a brief, handwritten note asking his brother not to look for him, promising to return home safely. Holding the message, the Duke sighs in frustration over his younger brother's antics. He is left wondering what his next move should be to resolve this recurring problem. Meanwhile, Evelyn tries to spend her maintenance allowance by handing out boxes of expensive macarons to the servants. She smiles warmly, hoping her small gifts will make them happy. Though the servants are deeply touched by her kindness, Evelyn misinterprets their intense, admiring stares as anger. She worries her plan backfired until her maid quietly calls out to her. Her maid asks if keeping the mysterious child is truly wise. Last night, Evelyn brought the young boy to the estate, pleading with the staff to take him in until they can locate his family. Evelyn explained. She simply couldn't leave the boy stranded in the square all alone. Looking up with a sharp, crimson gaze, the child quietly addressed her as the future madam. Now, Evelyn and her maid watch the quiet boy read and eat in the parlor. They whisper about how the Duke has not yet given permission, unaware that the young guest can hear every word. Evelyn quietly schemes, wondering if keeping the boy secret might provoke the Duke into breaking off their engagement. To her, this risky plan feels like a golden opportunity. Stepping into the parlor, Evelyn explains she is only staying at the estate temporarily. The boy looks up, curiously noting that the servants called her the future madam of the house. Evelyn flushes in embarrassment when the boy bluntly asks if she is the Duke's fiancé. He precociously points out that a marriage to the powerful house of Hardian makes perfect political sense. He goes on to ask if she simply does not love the Duke at all. Flustered, Evelyn tries to praise his sharp mind, only for him to declare that she seems rather foolish. The child sighs, warning Evelyn that she is far too trusting and practically begging to be scammed. Behind them, Her maid Emily nods in silent, painful agreement with the boy's blunt assessment. As he eats a macaron, the boy advises her not to blindly trust people just because they are young or handsome. Evelyn is forced to agree, unable to dispute his surprisingly logical warnings. Yet, Evelyn is completely distracted by how adorable his chubby cheeks look as he eats. She happily pats his head, promising to leave him in Emily's care while she steps out. When the boy asks where she is going, Evelyn sheepishly admits she plans to deliver some macarons to the master of the house, quickly correcting herself to say her boyfriend. Though she knows the Duke dislikes sweet things, she worries he might feel left out. After all, even Hugo received a box of treats, leaving his master standing in the gloomy background. Standing outside Cale's door, Evelyn hesitates. She tells herself she only wants to save him from being sad, not that she actually likes him, before tentatively knocking. Inside, Cale sits quietly as Evelyn steps in, her heart beating fast. When he dryly remarks on his busy future wife, she nervously extends the box of treats she prepared. Presenting the beautifully decorated macarons, she softly reminds him that she knows he dislikes sweet things. She sits beside him, offering to take them back if he prefers not to eat them. But before she can pull the box away, Cale's gloved hand firmly wraps around her waist. With a swift, gentle tug, he pulls her onto his lap, leaving her completely stunned. Blushing furiously, Evelyn demands to know what he is doing. Cale simply smiles, leaning close as he asks her to feed the treats to him directly. Dumbfounded, Evelyn can only lock eyes with him in confusion. Cale repeats his request with a soft, teasing gaze, leaving her breathless at their sudden proximity. Meanwhile, back in the parlor, young Master Karen holds out a dense historical trade book, leaving Emily utterly bewildered by his choice of reading material. As Evelyn holds out a box of sweets, Cale teasingly offers to eat them only if she feeds him herself. The sudden intimacy leaves her flustered, hastily telling him to just leave the treats alone. But Cale presses closer, murmuring for her not to run away. Before she can escape his gaze, he leans in, pressing soft kisses against her cheek and neck. His embrace grows tighter as he buries his face against her, his touch sending a quiet shiver through her. Evelyn can only whisper his name, completely overwhelmed by his sudden warmth. A sudden knock shatters the quiet moment, and Hugo announces his entrance. Evelyn immediately springs back in a panic, leaving Cale sitting alone with a look of quiet irritation. Hugo walks in carrying a massive tower of documents, apologizing for the heavy workload. Seizing the distraction, Evelyn quickly slips past him, leaving both men behind. Left alone on the sofa, Cale stares down at the sweets, looking thoroughly dejected. When Hugo asks where Evelyn went, the Duke simply sighs, noting that his wife seems quite busy. Safe outside, Evelyn covers her burning cheeks, her heart pounding wildly. She realizes she was almost completely swept away by his handsome face, calling him a total expert at romance. As her carriage rattles down the road, thoughts of Cale continue to flicker in her mind. No matter how hard she tries, she simply cannot calm her racing thoughts. Determined to get a grip, she reminds herself of the important task ahead today. Behind her in the carriage lies a heap of carefully wrapped gift boxes ready for delivery. Evelyn arrives at the Arterre Imperial National Orphanage. Realizing she has no desire for high society parties or personal luxury, she decides that donating her allowance to those in need is the best way to spend it. Before she can head inside, a sudden movement catches her attention. A stray black cat wanders over, meowing at the hem of her gown and instantly putting a bright smile on Evelyn's face. She kneels down to pet the friendly creature, offering it a warm greeting. But their quiet moment is suddenly cut short when an anxious voice calls out from across the courtyard. An orphanage caretaker rushes over on all fours, gasping in relief, as she calls the cat Poppy. Surprised by the sudden entrance, Evelyn looks on as children watch curiously from a nearby window. Inside, the caretaker holds the rescued cat close and expresses her deep gratitude. However, Her relief quickly turns to utter shock when she sees the massive tower of gifts Evelyn has brought along. Evelyn explains that the boxes contain snacks and various herbal teas. She has even carefully jotted down the specific health benefits for each blend to ensure they are given to the children according to their needs. But the real surprise comes when Evelyn opens a large chest, presenting a massive donation of gold coins to help support the children. The caretaker can only gasp at the sheer generosity. Staring at the glittering treasure, the caretaker is stunned by such a large amount. Meanwhile, Evelyn privately tells herself it is perfectly fine, since it is Kale's money anyway. When the caretaker asks for a name to record in the donation ledger, Evelyn hesitates for a brief moment. Deciding to keep her identity quiet, she simply credits the contribution to the House of Hardian. Evelyn smiles, feeling a sense of satisfaction after donating every last coin of Kale's money to the orphanage. But as she glances toward the window, her satisfaction turns to panic when she realizes the sun is already setting. Remembering her dinner plans with Kale, Evelyn rushes out of the orphanage in a hurry. The caretaker calls after her in vain, watching as she disappears down the corridor. Later that evening, a mysterious silver-haired woman arrives at the orphanage, cradling the rescued black cat. When she hears that the generous donor left the name of the House of Hardian, her curiosity is instantly sparked. Caressing the cat, the red-eyed woman smiles softly, murmuring that she wants to know exactly what kind of person this mysterious benefactor is. Arriving 2 hours late for dinner, Evelyn apologetically explains how busy her day has been. She notices the lavish feast before them has gone completely untouched and wonders why he hasn't eaten yet. Rather than picking up his silverware, he simply demands that she feed him. Evelyn tries to pull away from the table, but he reaches out and firmly grabs her hand to stop her. Before she can protest, he pulls her onto his lap and reveals a bandaged hand, claiming he was injured during a recent training match with Hugo. Seeing the bandage, Evelyn's irritation turns to gentle concern as she carefully examines his hand. Under his intense gaze, she suddenly grows self-conscious of how close they are. When he asks if she is worried, Evelyn quickly agrees, almost calling him her husband before catching herself and realizing she needs to break their engagement. He tells her she must take better care of herself, leaving her suspicious of whether this supposed injury is actually real. Realizing she has no choice, Evelyn picks up the fork and gently feeds him. He smiles in satisfaction, leaving her heart racing at his sudden warmth. As Evelyn sits on the Duke's lap, she suddenly feels his hand moving under the table. The unexpected touch catches her completely off guard, making her face flush with embarrassment. When he gently strokes her hair, she quickly protests, asking why he keeps touching her. The Duke calmly offers to stop if she dislikes it, leaving her flustered as she tries to reason with him. To set some boundaries, Evelyn suggests a new rule. The first one to make physical contact must grant a wish. She confidently warns him that her penalty will be highly embarrassing. The Duke readily agrees and searches his pockets for a pre-written set of rules, only to realize he left the paper in his bedroom. Seeing his unexpected clumsy side makes her smile. He returns to the table and presents her with a formal contract to sign. Evelyn is amused by his love for structured planning, finding the arrangement surprisingly professional. She reviews the terms, which detail their daily meals, family visits, and marital obligations. Confident that everything looks standard, she prepares to sign, while the Duke quietly urges her to read it carefully. The moment she happily signs, the Duke tells her to go wash up. She is stunned to discover a hidden clause requiring them to sleep in the same bed every single night. When she protests, he calmly tells her to flip the document over. On the back, she reads that while they must share a bedroom daily, her personal choices regarding sleeping arrangements will be respected. Reading further, Evelyn is outraged by a clause demanding she learn his preferred sleeping posture. But as she calls him a scammer, Her eyes drift back to his bandaged hand, her anger softening into concern. Unable to leave him hurt, she gently unwinds the bandage to inspect the wound. To her utter shock, the skin underneath is completely smooth and uninjured. Evelyn immediately accuses him of lying. The Duke simply smiles, pointing back to the contract they just signed. He reminds her of the rule they just established. Since she touched him first to undo the bandage, she must now grant him a wish. Leaning in close, he prepares to claim his prize, leaving Evelyn flustered and trapped in his embrace. Meanwhile, a tense meeting takes place at the Florence estate. An angry noblewoman confronts Countess Florence, demanding to know if Evelyn is truly going to marry the Duke. She warns that breaking the engagement will make an enemy of the House of Handsworth. But Evelyn's mother remains resolute, facing the threat head-on. A final flashback reveals the truth behind the Duke's deception, showing him ordering his aide to wrap the fake wound as tightly as possible. Tensions rise in the drawing room as a stern confrontation begins. Confronted with the threat of making an enemy of the House of Handsworth, Evelyn's mother remains completely unfazed, questioning why such a prospect should even concern them. Her confidence stems from a powerful new alliance. With Duke Hardian now poised to become her son-in-law, she quietly celebrates Evelyn's fortune, gladly choosing this path over letting her daughter waste away with a deceitful fiancé. The opposing mother bristles behind her fan, deeply offended by the lecture on how she raised her son. Yet, Evelyn's mother refuses to back down, insisting they lay out the cold, hard facts of the matter. She calls out Edwin's blatant infidelity, refusing to excuse his betrayal. Despite the desperate defense that men and women are simply different, the boundary has been drawn. It is time for their families to go their separate ways. Demanding the conversation end, Evelyn's mother stands to dismiss her guest. But a tense silence hangs in the air as a sudden, venomous smirk creeps onto the visitor's face, signaling a dangerous turn. The threat is delivered with chilling precision. A witness saw Evelyn leaving a suburban hotel on the night of the banquet. Evelyn's mother freezes in shock as the trap is laid out, holding her daughter's reputation hostage. Left alone with the weight of the looming scandal, Evelyn's mother is consumed by dread, knowing the devastating impact this rumor could have on her daughter's future. Meanwhile, unaware of the storm brewing back home, Evelyn frantically recounts the bizarre events of the banquet to her maid, unable to comprehend how she suddenly woke up safe in her own bedroom. Evelyn insists she was knocked out cold during their encounter. However, her maid is entirely amused, pointing out that her lady has already repeated this exact same story dozens of times. Her maid notes how impressive it is that she passes out every single time, prompting Evelyn to sigh and reluctantly agree with a soft, tired yawn. The conversation takes a sharp, intimate turn when the maid asks if she dislikes being with the Duke, catching Evelyn completely off guard as a sudden blush colors her face. Fidgeting nervously with her dress, Evelyn looks away and softly confesses that she does not actually hate the Duke's company. Intimate memories of the banquet suddenly flood her mind, recalling how the Duke leaned close to question why she treated his goodwill with such disdain. She vividly recalls the intensity of his gaze up close, remembering how his sudden closeness left her completely flustered and breathless in the quiet room. The memories grow increasingly vivid as she recalls his breath against her skin and the tight grip of her hands against the surface. Her cheeks burn as she remembers his whispered confession of feeling hot, followed by the scandalous suggestion to move things to the bathtub. She stares blankly, lost in the memory of discarded clothes on the floor, until her maid's voice finally pulls her back to the present. Though she secretly admits the experience felt wonderful, Evelyn quickly chides herself, holding her head in her hands as she vows to keep her guard up. Her anxiety spikes as she recalls the original novel, remembering that it was a highly explicit dark story warning of the Duke's sadistic preferences. Fearing his unpredictable nature, she shudders at the thought of his sharp teeth grazing her neck, determined not to let herself become his next victim. Evelyn's anxiety escalates as she imagines the Duke carrying her away, nervously wondering if his rumored sadistic side means his physical behavior might eventually cross a line. Her wild thoughts are suddenly interrupted when a slice of chocolate cake is served to her table. Evelyn looks up, completely startled by the unexpected treat. She turns to find an elegant, silver-haired woman standing beside her table. Leaning closer, the stranger takes in her scent before speaking her full name aloud. Evelyn asks how the woman knows her identity. Smiling knowingly, the stranger reveals she knows Evelyn as the lady using the name of the House of Hardian. Left completely bewildered, Evelyn panics, desperately trying to figure out this mysterious woman's identity, while the stranger simply laughs at her confusion. Evelyn vents her frustration, upset at how her good intentions are being misconstrued. Meanwhile, the Duke merely watches her, finding her expressive irritation oddly endearing. Amused by the reports of her behavior, the Duke cannot help but smile. His assistant notes that the lady resembles a raccoon, always busy plotting some minor trick. The reports reveal her recent movements, showing that she visited a dessert cafe before sending a substantial donation to a local orphanage, accompanied by a formal thank you letter. While the aide is deeply moved and praises the lady as a literal angel, the Duke examines the specific timeline of her visits with intense focus. Looking closely at the document, the Duke realizes that this particular orphanage holds a far more significant connection than his aide could ever suspect. Later, Evelyn is introduced to an elegant noblewoman named Catherine, who reveals she is the guardian of the stray cat Evelyn has been caring for. Delighted by the meeting, Evelyn compliments her as a beautiful older sister in her early 30s, leaving the lady completely taken aback by the assumption. The lady gently corrects her, revealing she has a fully grown son. After a flustered apology, she asks for the name of Evelyn's polite young maid. Her tone shifts to one of quiet seriousness as she asks both Evelyn and Emily if they can spare a private moment to speak. Meeting in the sunlit garden, Evelyn is immediately struck by Catherine's elegant beauty. She tries to recall if such a striking noblewoman was ever mentioned in the novel, but her memories remain fuzzy. Catherine warmly expresses her gratitude for saving her beloved cat, Poppy. She is delighted to report that the little feline is back home, resting comfortably after his adventure. The conversation shifts as Catherine reveals just how much she knows about Evelyn's family, mentioning her status as the Florence family's eldest daughter and her brother's recent return. When asked where she is currently staying, Evelyn hesitates. She carefully explains that she is temporarily living at a manor belonging to an acquaintance. Catherine's sharp intuition immediately guides her to ask if that acquaintance is Duke Hardian. The sudden question catches Evelyn completely off guard, leaving her flustered. Realizing the rumors have already spread to the newspapers, Evelyn decides to be honest. She nervously confesses that the Duke is indeed her lover, sparking Catherine's excitement. When Evelyn calls their meeting a pure coincidence, Catherine finds it wonderfully romantic. Evelyn, however, can only laugh nervously, keeping the chaotic truth of their first night to herself. Evelyn quickly adds that they are still just getting to know each other. The modest confession only makes the older noblewoman gush with motherly warmth. Their pleasant chat is interrupted when an officer approaches and whispers to Catherine. Reluctantly, the noblewoman realizes she must cut their meeting short and depart. As Catherine prepares to leave, she whispers a warm parting promise to meet again if the opportunity arises. Evelyn watches her walk away, deeply touched by the older woman's kindness. Evelyn can't help but smile, thinking of how wonderful Catherine is, though a faint sense of familiarity lingers. Still, she realizes she forgot to ask for the lady's name before she departed. Later, during a quiet afternoon in the ducal garden, A letter arrives for Evelyn from Florence County. Holding the sealed envelope, she dares to hope for a reconciliation. She eagerly imagines her parents pleading for her return, apologizing for their mistakes. Brimming with excitement, at the thought of finally going home, she quickly breaks the seal. But as she unfolds the letter, her excitement quickly vanishes. The message is not the warm apology she expected, but a stark warning regarding Duke Hardian. Horrified, she reads that Kate won't let the Duke get away with this. Left completely stunned in the garden, Evelyn can only stare at the page in shock. The morning paper delivers shocking news, detailing Evelyn Florence's sudden engagement to the infamous Duke Hardian. Her close friends are deeply hurt, demanding to know why they had to read about her marriage in the headlines instead of hearing it from her. Flustered and sweating under their intense gaze, Evelyn desperately tries to find the words to explain the complicated situation. They are stunned by her recklessness, reminding her of the Duke's fearsome reputation, after she confesses that it all began with a night of drinking. Horrific rumors paint him as a bloodthirsty monster, a tyrant who detests being touched and harbors dark secrets within his estate. Sensing her hesitation, her friend reaches out and gently holds her hand, asking if she truly wants to escape this unwanted union. When Evelyn confirms she does, her friends immediately vow to help her ruin the marriage before it can even begin. With a sense of determination, they don sunglasses to launch their scheme. Operation Channeling the Evil Mother-in-Law. They arrive at a grand restaurant, with Evelyn's friends dressed dramatically to intimidate the Duke and make a strong first impression. But as they step inside, Evelyn is puzzled to find the highly popular restaurant completely vacant, with only a single employee in sight. The waiter smiles and explains that the Duke rented out the entire establishment, leaving the three friends as the only guests. The girls stare in absolute shock at the empty, luxurious room. Dorothy is easily impressed by the grand gesture, but Kate quickly pinches her cheek. She warns Dorothy not to let the Duke's massive wealth sway them from their plan. Watching her friends stay focused, Evelyn feels a wave of reassurance. With their support, she starts to believe their operation to break off the engagement might actually succeed. 10 minutes pass in agonizing silence as they wait. Evelyn grows anxious over Cale's tardiness, while her friends prepare to give him a piece of their minds. The Duke finally arrives with a quiet apology. The friends prepare to glare him down, but the moment they lay eyes on him, Kate is so shocked she nearly chokes on her tea. Standing before them is a remarkably handsome man. He is dressed in a breathtaking gold-trimmed military uniform that makes an unforgettable impression, exuding an air of elegance. Looking directly at Evelyn, Cale offers gentle explanation that heavy traffic delayed his arrival. His calm, polite demeanor immediately softens the tense atmosphere in the room. Flustered by his appearance, Evelyn asks if he dressed up just for today. In response, Cale leans in close and affectionately kisses her cheek, sending a jolt of electricity through her. Cale softly explains that he had to look his absolute best to meet her dearest friends. The intimate whisper leaves Evelyn blushing furiously, completely lost for words. Any grand plans of intimidating the fearsome Duke instantly crumble. Completely won over by his charm and politeness, Kate immediately curtsies and greets him warmly. As their meal is served, Kate addresses the Duke directly. She explains that Evelyn is a precious friend with absolutely no dating experience. Because of this, they wanted to inspect the Duke personally, declaring that his marriage to Evelyn is impossible without their seal of approval. Kate points out that the Duke has only known Evelyn for a few days compared to their 10-year friendship. But before she can finish, the Duke's butler steps forward to present the two friends with massive, stunning bouquets of flowers, catching them completely off guard. Alongside the flowers, the butler presents luxurious jewelry boxes. The sparkling gifts are revealed to be custom-made pieces, featuring both of their birthstones. Instantly won over, Kate happily tries on the necklace and proclaims that the Duke is indeed the absolute best groom. Evelyn can only stare in absolute shock at her friend's sudden and complete betrayal. As she sweats nervously under the rapidly changing atmosphere, the Duke sits quietly, sipping his tea with a satisfied, knowing smile on his face. Staring down at her food, Evelyn desperately screams inside for her friends to remember their promise to ruin the marriage. Little does she know, the Duke had planned this very trap, instructively ordering his staff to make him look like the perfect groom. During dinner, Evelyn's friends ask the Duke what he finds most charming about her. With a warm, effortless smile, he replies that he cannot choose just one thing because she is cute from head to toe. Her friends immediately swoon over his sweet words, leaving Evelyn entirely frozen in disbelief. She can only sweat in silence as they gush over his surprisingly gentle behavior. Staring at Cale's smooth, friendly expression, Evelyn struggles to process this side of him. He is playing the role of a devoted partner perfectly, yet his sudden change of demeanor feels deeply unsettling to her. She vividly remembers his usual coldness and complete lack of interest in their past encounters. Yet here he is, effortlessly winning over her companions until they are fully on his side. Cale projects a picture of absolute perfection, leaving Evelyn gripping her glass in quiet desperation. The charm offensive is working all too well, and she realizes she has completely lost control of the situation. Flush with embarrassment and frustration, she watches helplessly as Cale bids them a warm farewell. Her friends are already celebrating their upcoming marriage, leaving Evelyn more determined than ever to find a way out. Slipping away in dark cloaks, Evelyn discusses her next move with Emily. She still remembers Cale's mocking, challenging smile, and the memory only fuels her desire to escape his grasp. Grinning with newfound resolve, Evelyn ignores Emily's worry and prepares to put her plan into action. She will do whatever it takes to outsmart the Duke and regain her freedom. To find a way out, Evelyn seeks the Shadow Guild, a legendary information hub disguised as a simple flower shop. It is a place known for tracking down anyone in the Empire. Deep inside, they meet a masked informant who boasts a perfect success rate. Evelyn hopes this mysterious figure can grant her the key to escaping her unwanted engagement. However, the informant flatly refuses to help. He explains that since he has never been dumped himself, he cannot advise her on how to safely end her relationship. Evelyn seethes with frustration at his arrogant response, while Emily desperately tries to hold her back. The man simply laughs, playfully teasing her about asking for such difficult information. Before they can leave, the informant admits he was only joking and presents a solution. He reveals that she must launder both her money and her identity to truly disappear. He suggests that after ghosting the Duke, she must live under an entirely new name. The sheer scale of the plan leaves Evelyn stunned as she realizes this is highly illegal. Sitting back down, Evelyn listens as the informant insists that running away requires breaking the law. He warns her that a clean escape demands absolute resolve. Evelyn swallows hard and tightly clutches her dress, feeling the gravity of the decision ahead. The path to freedom is far more dangerous than she originally anticipated. The next day, Evelyn sits on a park bench sighing in exhaustion. The reality of committing a crime just to escape her engagement weighs heavily on her mind. While eating a sweet treat, she anxiously contemplates the high stakes of identity laundering. With Cale's influence stretching across the entire empire, she wonders if she can ever truly hide. Evelyn quickly realizes that running away requires money, but nearly all the funds she currently possesses belong to Cale. Spending his wealth to escape would make her a thief, potentially landing her behind bars. She shudders at the terrifying thought of his retribution, imagining the cold Duke cornering her in prison. She fears he would offer a poisoned chalice as his last cruel mercy before she could ever stand trial. Snapping back to reality, Evelyn tries to clear her mind. Her dark thoughts are suddenly interrupted by the sight of a man sleeping lazily on a nearby park bench, looking completely homeless to a worried Emily. Driven by curiosity, Evelyn approaches the sleeping stranger. She politely calls out to him, prompting the man to slowly sit up and lift his hat to see who is speaking to him. Feeling a surge of pity, she offers him her fresh, untouched crepe. Evelyn hopes a simple, warm gesture might bring a small bit of comfort to his day. The man stares blankly at the dessert in surprise. He looks up at Evelyn, who watches him with a gentle, earnest expression as she holds it out. Reaching out, he takes the treat and holds her hands warmly. He smiles, asking if she has a husband, instantly raising both her and Emily's suspicion about his strange behavior. Under the bright afternoon sun, a bustling town square serves as the backdrop for a quiet afternoon. A simple stroll takes an unexpected turn when a stranger suddenly poses a surprising question. Caught completely off guard while enjoying her crepe, she wonders why a stranger would suddenly ask if she is married. Blushing slightly, she quickly clarifies that she is still single. With an encouraging grin, the man immediately asks if she would like to meet his eldest son. The sudden proposal leaves her completely stunned as she stands holding her snack in the park. The man enthusiastically suggests that they would make a wonderful couple, prompting her to quickly interject that she already has a fiancé. But the stranger refuses to be discouraged so easily. As the man urges her to consider a casual meeting, she takes a closer look at his features. Beneath his worn hat, he possesses a sturdy build and deep blue eyes that leave her quietly admiring his handsome looks. The stranger proudly boasts about his son's vast wealth, though he admits his personality is rather difficult. He confesses that the young man is cold and ruthless. Though the man reassures her that his son only acts with reason, she politely declines. Dealing with one dangerous mastermind in her life is already more than enough. Curiosity gets the better of her, and she asks why he was sleeping on a public bench covered in newspapers. Smiling warmly, he explains that he simply ran out of money while traveling. He laments that everyone else clicks their tongues and avoids him like a beggar, praising her rare kindness. She listens softly, feeling a touch of sympathy for the lonely traveler. Offering a warm and bright smile, she bids him well, noting that whoever becomes his daughter-in-law will be very fortunate to have such a kind and sweet father-in-law. Her maid gently interrupts her thoughts, pointing toward the clock tower and reminding her that they must return before dinner. Realizing the time, she knows they must head back soon. As Evelyn waves a warm goodbye, the mysterious traveler watches her go with a heavy sigh, wishing she could have been the match for his son. Left alone on the park bench, the traveler deeply regrets not even asking for the kind young lady's name before she departed. Returning to her room empty-handed, Evelyn collapses onto her bed in exhaustion, frustrated that she still has not found a way to escape her impending marriage. Meanwhile, Cale is taking his groom preparation incredibly seriously, dedicating himself to memorizing everything from her favorite flowers to the songs she loved in her childhood. Though she tries to picture a beautiful and happy wedding day, the thought of actually marrying the dangerous Duke only triggers her deepest apprehensions. In her mind, the fairy tale quickly turns in a nightmare where she is discarded and killed the moment she is no longer useful to him. Terrified by this grim vision of her future, Evelyn panics and dramatically collapses in despair, leaving her maid to look on in complete confusion. Determined to change her fate at all costs, she turns to her wardrobe to retrieve her ultimate secret weapon, a simple white men's shirt. Since the day she was born, she was always taught to be quiet, submissive, and modest, waiting patiently for a husband to guide her. Those heavy expectations followed her everywhere, forcing her to constantly play the part of the perfect, obedient lady both inside and outside the Count's estate. Evelyn reasons that if Cale believes she is unchaste and promiscuous, he will surely lose all interest in marrying her, freeing her from this dangerous engagement. Under the cover of a rainy evening, she nervously puts on an oversized white men's shirt. Though she finds the outfit incredibly awkward, she steels herself to play the part. The plan is instantly interrupted when Kale walks through the door. A heavy, startled silence falls over the room as she sweats under his intense gaze. Panicked by his sudden arrival, Evelyn acts on impulse and scrambles under the bed. Crawling on the carpet, she immediately regrets her decision to hide. Her heart pounds frantically as Kale's dark boots stop right next to the bed. Trapped in her cramped hiding spot, she stares forward in absolute terror. As lightning flashes outside, Evelyn's mind runs wild with terrifying thoughts. She imagines Kale standing over her with a sword, his eyes glowing coldly in the dark. Her silent screams echo in her mind as a massive thunderstorm rages outside the grand mansion, mirroring the absolute chaos of her failed plan. Completely overwhelmed by the sheer terror of the situation, she collapses in absolute defeat, her spirit leaving her body as her grand plan falls apart. Lightning flashes through the dark room, illuminating Kale standing over Evelyn with a drawn sword. Startled by the sudden intrusion, she shrinks back in fear, staring up at his intimidating silhouette. Suddenly, a hand covers Evelyn's mouth to quiet her. Realizing it is her, Kale immediately lowers his weapon and kneels beside her on the floor, explaining that he mistook her for an intruder. As Evelyn wonders what kind of dangerous life he leads, Kale stands up and holds her close, asking what she is doing in his room at this hour. Caught off guard, she struggles to find the words to explain her sudden appearance. Kale watches her silently, waiting for her response as she tries to hide her mounting panic. Stealing her resolve, Evelyn reaches out and places her hand gently on Kale's chest. Blushing deeply, she wraps her arms around his neck and confesses that she came looking for him because she wants him. Kale's eyes widen slightly in surprise at her sudden warmth. Standing close to her, he asks what she is doing, while she trembles, trying to find the courage to ask to spend the night in his room. Evelyn nervously attempts to unbutton Kale's shirt, but her inexperienced hands struggle with the fabric. Sensing her movements, Kale suddenly catches her by the wrist. Startled by his firm grip, Evelyn looks up just as Kale sweeps her down, pressing her onto the bed beneath him. Hovering close above her, Kale's quiet gaze makes Evelyn increasingly anxious. Fearing that she has offended him, she quickly stammers an apology. Rather than anger, Kale's attention is fixed on the oversized white shirt she is wearing. He demands to know whose shirt it is, clearly displeased by its scent and style. When Evelyn explains that she secretly stole the shirt from her father, Count Florence, Kale remains highly skeptical, prompting her to defensively plead the truth. Blushing deeply, Evelyn confesses that she wore the shirt to seduce him, but privately worries her scandalous behavior will make her look too easy. To her surprise, Kale's stern expression melts away into a warm smile as the tense atmosphere between them suddenly softens. Kale leans in and rests his head against her, prompting Evelyn to playfully boast that she is actually a wild woman. Smiling, he agrees that their tastes match perfectly. Calling them a match made in heaven, Kale teases her about their first night together. Realizing her plan has completely failed, a panicked Evelyn desperately wishes she could run away. As Evelyn tries to slip away, Kale holds her close, teasingly asking where she is going when she supposedly came to seduce him. Her protests are quickly silenced, and their night stretches long into the next morning, leaving her utterly exhausted as dawn breaks over the estate. By the next evening, Evelyn sits at the dinner table in a complete daze, mortified by how easily she fell into his trap. Kale only adds to her embarrassment by smiling and admitting that he thoroughly enjoyed her little scenario, confirming he knew she was acting the entire time. Interrupting her mounting panic, Kale slides a beautifully decorated, wax-sealed envelope across the table, telling her he has something to give her. Evelyn's heart drops when she reads the card. It is an official invitation to the Crown Prince's birthday banquet at the Imperial Palace. Panic washes over Evelyn as she remembers the original novel. This very banquet is the fateful place where Kegel is destined to meet the female lead for the first time. The upcoming Imperial banquet is destined to be the place where the novel's romance begins. There, Kale is supposed to meet the female lead, Princess Reina, and fall in love with her at first sight. As Evelyn contemplates this fated encounter, she cannot help but feel the weight of the original novel's plot looming over them, knowing his future lies with someone else. At the dining table, Kale casually feeds her, reminding her that they will be attending these social events together from now on. Although Evelyn accepts the food, she feels deeply uneasy about the upcoming banquet. She dreads being a third wheel during his destined meeting. Her mind races with the possible outcomes, wondering if he will simply let her go, or if her interference will lead to a much darker fate. Staring into the distance, she quietly worries about what this fated romance means for her own survival. She fears she might be entirely discarded once the true female lead appears. Interrupting her anxious thoughts, Kale softly tells her that she does not have to go. His unexpected consideration leaves her momentarily speechless as she searches his calm face. He admits he dislikes noisy places anyway, but when Evelyn asks if he will skip it too, Kale simply responds, "Why would I go if you're not there?" Evelyn panics, unable to explain that it is his destined fate to attend. When Kale begins to suspect she is hiding something, her anxiety spikes. Desperate to avoid suspicion, she quickly backtracks, plastering on a bright smile and insisting she is just excited to go. Inside, she resolves that they must attend the banquet together, no matter what. Under the cover of night, Evelyn paces her chamber in deep distress. Though she desperately contemplates running away with the guild's assistance to escape her looming fate, she knows she cannot abandon her loyal maid, Emily, or the young Kieran. Seeking a distraction from her anxious thoughts, she walks down the hall and knocks gently on Kieran's door. Upon entering the dimly lit room, she finds the quiet boy sitting up in bed, wide awake. The boy softly admits he suffers from insomnia, explaining that he struggles to sleep when he has to change beds. Evelyn looks at him with warm sympathy, understanding how unfamiliar this new home must feel to him. Hoping to help him rest, Evelyn offers to read him a fairy tale. However, as she looks at the books in his room, she is shocked to find historical volumes detailing brutal murders, deadly poisons, and bloody rebellions. Kieran bluntly explains that he finds stories where a prince and princess live happily ever after boring. Instead, he pulls out a specific book from under his blanket, and Evelyn joins him on the bed to read. The book is titled, "The Duke's Aide Wants to Resign." Evelyn begins reading aloud, recounting the story of a female lead named Lena who wakes up in sheer panic next to her boss, Duke Theo. Startled by the suspiciously familiar premise, Evelyn hesitates, but Kieran urges her to go on. She reads of Lena quickly gathering her clothes to flee, only to submit a formal resignation letter 2 months later. In the story, Duke Theo smiles coldly as he confronts Lena in his study, demanding to know if she is really shameless enough to simply take what she wants and run. Lena refuses to back down, firmly requesting that he process her resignation. Angered by her defiance, the Duke steps forward and suddenly grabs her by the wrist. The romance novel takes a dramatic turn as the Duke corners Lena, accusing her of trying to flee with his child. Evelyn's face flushes as she reads the intensely possessive line aloud. Concerned by the mature theme, Evelyn hastily slams the book shut. Although she suggests a different story, the young boy insists it is fun and eagerly keeps reading. Eventually, the boy drifts off to sleep, clutching his blanket. Watching his peaceful face, Evelyn smiles softly, glad he could finally rest despite his insomnia. Yet, his earlier words continue to haunt her. He had innocently asked why storybook characters always run away, and if she, too, wanted to flee from her fiancé. The next morning, Evelyn tries on dresses for the upcoming banquet. But her mind is so weighed down by the future that she cannot focus on the beautiful gowns. Her fittings are interrupted when the Duke's aide peeks into the room. With an apologetic smile, he delivers the sudden news that a guest has just arrived at the duchy. Evelyn's confusion turns to surprise as she meets the unexpected visitors. A white-haired noblewoman and a dark-haired man in glasses stand before her, bringing a sudden shift to the quiet estate. Standing alone in the grand hallway, Evelyn anxiously wonders who could possibly be visiting her at the Duke's estate, only to gasp in sudden surprise when the mysterious guests finally make their appearance. A striking, elegant woman with cascading silver hair and a gentleman wearing round spectacles step forward, their refined presence immediately filling the quiet room with an air of sophisticated grace. Evelyn is astonished to see them and eagerly asks how they managed to arrive, but the lady simply smiles, playfully revealing that she is actually very well acquainted with Duke Hardian. Just then, Duke Kale enters the grand room and calmly introduces the elegant lady as his guest, leaving Evelyn completely bewildered as she tries to make sense of their sudden arrival. When Kale respectfully addresses the couple as his mother and father, the sudden revelation of their true noble identities leaves the room in a heavy, stunned silence as Evelyn processes the truth. A quiet young boy named Karen soon joins the gathering, politely welcoming his parents back home while cradling a thick book tightly against his chest as he looks up at them. Evelyn struggles to comprehend the shocking situation, especially when she realizes that the distinguished former Duke before her is the very same man she once helped in the square when he looked like a beggar. While the former Duke enthusiastically calls their unexpected reunion destiny, Kale's companion formally clarifies that these guests are indeed the former Duke and Duchess, confirming Evelyn's wildest suspicions and sending her into absolute shock. Left completely frozen in the middle of the grand room, Evelyn tries to wrap her head around the fact that she has just met Kale's entire family under the most bizarre circumstances imaginable. Overwhelmed by the sheer shock of discovering the former Duke's true identity, Evelyn's knees completely give out. She faints right on the spot, falling directly into Kale's arms as the panicked family frantically calls for a doctor. Once she recovers, Evelyn sits stiffly at the grand dinner table, desperately trying to maintain her composure. She insists she is fine, all while privately worrying that the others might think she is far too weak and fragile. As Kale's parents observe her with gentle curiosity, Evelyn silently berates herself for being so dense. Seeing the family gathered together, she realizes it is painfully obvious that they all share the exact same striking features. When Kale quietly notes that they met by chance, the young Karen eagerly asks when the wedding will take place. Evelyn flusters, stammering that she is not officially his sister-in-law yet, though the boy happily dismisses her logic. The former Duchess warmly accepts her anyway, affectionately calling her a beloved daughter-in-law. She then asks Evelyn if she is attending the upcoming banquet, expressing her eager desire to present her with a special gift.
Swallowing her nervous tension, Evelyn can only nod and smile back. The Duchess's bright, enthusiastic expression does little to calm Evelyn's wild imagination about what kind of eccentric present could possibly be waiting for her.
True to her word, the Duchess gently takes Evelyn's hand once their dinner is finished. She guides her down the quiet hallway, stopping before a set of grand doors that slowly swing open to reveal the surprise. Bracing herself for a bizarre trial, Evelyn is instead left completely stunned to find a massive, luxurious dressing room. Countless magnificent gowns line the walls, glittering under the chandelier as the Duchess proudly welcomes her inside. Looking at the elegant shoes and magnificent dresses, Evelyn realizes she has walked straight into a trap. The former Duchess eagerly reveals her lifelong dream of dressing up her future daughter-in-law. The excited Duchess wastes no time pulling Evelyn into the dressing room, enthusiastically throwing dress after dress into the mix, while Evelyn can only watch in absolute horror. Hours quickly slip away as Evelyn is forced to try on 100 different gowns. Collapsing to the floor in exhaustion, she realizes this overwhelming trial of affection is just as intense as Cale's behavior. Desperate for an escape, Evelyn quietly slips out the door, only to find Cale's father and brother standing in the hallway waiting to spend time with her too. As the former Duke and young Karen bicker over whose turn it is to talk to her, Evelyn finds herself completely trapped by her new family's intense affection. With the Duchess closing in from behind and the others waiting in front, Evelyn collapses on the carpet, silently begging for anyone to rescue her from this exhausting attention. Suddenly, a strong gloved hand wraps around her, pulling her close. Evelyn gasps in surprise, looking up to find Cale standing over her. Sweeping her up in a protective bridal carry, Cale turns away from his protesting family. With a calm but firm voice, he announces that he is taking his wife back. Declaring that his tired wife needs rest, Cale suddenly lifts Evelyn into his arms to take her away. Her family can only watch in complete shock at his bold departure. Despite her family's protests about the newlyweds being too hasty, Cale carries her out, while Evelyn weakly reminds him that they aren't even married yet. Safely inside their private chambers, Cale gently places Evelyn down on the bed. His careful touch leaves her flustered by his unexpected tenderness, unsure of how to react. Struggling to find her voice, Evelyn quietly thanks him for his help. Cale stands over her, his expression serious as he contemplates what just happened. Cale admits he stepped in because he had a bad feeling about the situation. This prompts Evelyn to recall just how overwhelming her new family can be. Apologizing for their behavior, Cale kneels to help her with her shoes, urging her to rest. Evelyn is startled, wondering how he knew she was feeling unwell. Touching her forehead gently, Cale points out that she has been off since she fainted earlier. He promises not to bother her while she rests, drawing a soft, flustered reply from her. As Cale tenderly pats her hand, Evelyn begins to see a sweeter side to him. He sits beside her with a quiet, gentle smile, offering a rare moment of peace. Watching him closely, Evelyn shifts under the blankets. She hesitatingly asks if the Crown Prince will attend the upcoming banquet, wondering about the guest list. Cale confirms it is the prince's birthday, making his presence absolutely certain. Evelyn listens quietly, her mind turning to what this encounter will mean for them. Resting in bed, Evelyn softly wonders what Cale would do if he were to meet his absolute dream girl at the upcoming banquet. Before Cale can answer, she drifts off to sleep, and he silently watches over her as he stays by her side. As the grand birthday banquet draws near, a royal carriage arrives under the cover of night at the palace of the Crown Prince. Inside the grand halls, the Empire's Crown Prince, Ian, stands ready to receive his prestigious royal guests. With a charming smile, Ian steps forward to welcome the visiting princess, offering a warm greeting after her long journey. The elegant Princess Reina of the Kalan Kingdom steps down, her cheeks flushing slightly as she looks up to meet his gaze. Observing the unfolding events, Cale remains solemn, well aware of the political shifts these arrivals will bring to the Empire. Meanwhile, in the dim back alleys of the Empire, Evelyn's disgraced ex-fiancé, Edwin, vents his growing anger and frustration in isolation. His mother berates him fiercely for the broken engagement, refusing to let him forget the immense public humiliation he has brought upon their house. Drowning in resentment, Edwin desperately tries to shift the blame, angrily insisting that he was merely seduced by another woman first. Their hostile argument grows even more bitter as Edwin's mother throws his past scandals in his face, reminding him of another maid he harassed. Refusing to take responsibility, Edwin turns his anger back onto his mother, shouting at her for failing to secure their standing in the county. Furious that Evelyn might actually marry the Duke, Edwin storms out of the room, leaving his mother to collapse in shock into her maid's arms. Walking through the night, Edwin seethes with humiliation, unable to accept that he was cast aside by someone he always looked down upon. He views her sudden announcement of marriage to Duke Kale as a deliberate, spiteful plot to ruin his family's reputation in the eyes of the public. Kicking open the door to a quiet residence away from the streets, a frustrated Edwin loudly demands food before slumping onto the sofa in exhaustion. His dark-haired mistress greets him with a warm smile, offering him comfort and gently embracing him after his long and stressful day. Looking up at him with a soft, affectionate smile, she welcomes him home, though Edwin remains tense and silent in her embrace. Behind closed doors, Evelyn's fiancé seeks comfort in the arms of another woman. Yet, when she questions his recent absences, his warm embrace quickly turns cold, replaced by a heavy, annoyed sigh. Flinching at his irritation, Camila tries to explain her insecurity, gently reminding him of the child they are expecting. She only wished for him to be near, but her vulnerability only pushes him further away. His gaze hardens instantly. Demanding absolute secrecy, he questions if she has kept their affair hidden from his fiancé. Trapped by his cold authority, Camila quietly promises she hasn't said a single word. To protect his own standing, he knows he must hide this pregnancy at all costs. If his betrayal is exposed, he will be ruined. He secretly resolves to stall for time until he can secure his marriage to Evelyn. He secretly schemes to keep Camila as a mistress once the wedding is finished, reducing their bond to mere physical convenience. Camila can only look down, clutching her dress in a tense, heavy silence. Meanwhile, the grand ballroom of the imperial palace is alive with quiet chatter. Elegant guests gather under the glowing chandeliers as the night's most anticipated guests finally arrive. Duke Hardian arrives with Evelyn by his side, stepping forward with absolute composure. His striking, dark presence immediately turns heads, drawing every eye in the room to the couple. The crowd murmurs in awe, whispering that the handsome Duke outshines the Crown Prince himself. Walking close beside him, Evelyn grows nervous, shocked that anyone would dare say such things so openly. The whispers quickly shift to Evelyn, marking her as the envied fiancée of the powerful Duke. Clinging to his arm, she can feel the intense weight of their jealous stares. As Evelyn steps into the ballroom, the crowd's whispers about her past engagement to Lord Hansworth drift over. Clinging to the Duke, she tenses, painfully aware that the rumors are loud enough for everyone to hear. Before the tension can overwhelm her, her energetic friend Kate rushes forward with open arms. Evelyn barely has time to warn her before Kate comes to a sliding halt right in front of them. Kate enthusiastically gushes over how stunning the couple looks tonight. But the light-hearted mood shifts when she innocently asks why Camila isn't with them, mentioning that their friend has been acting distant lately. The mention of Camila fills Evelyn with immediate worry, knowing the dark truth behind her absence. But her anxious thoughts are suddenly cut short by a loud trumpet fanfare, signaling a grand arrival. Descending the grand staircase in pristine white, the Crown Prince welcomes his guests to his birthday banquet, radiating an effortless authority that commands the attention of the entire room. As music fills the air and couples take to the dance floor, Evelyn watches her friends depart. She scans the crowd, trying to recall the events of the original story, and wondering where the princess is hiding. Her train of thought is broken when a sharp voice addresses them from behind. The Crown Prince approaches, questioning why the Duke showed up at all after ignoring his official invitation. Standing close to the royalty for the first time, Evelyn is momentarily struck by his presence. Yet, as the prince's gaze turns directly toward her, his polite expression falters into sudden surprise. Evelyn nervously introduces herself to the Crown Prince, who playfully remarks on her scandalous reputation with the Duke. Unimpressed by his overly casual tone, Duke Hardian coldly demands that the prince show Evelyn proper respect. While the prince laughs off the duke's harsh words, Evelyn is left utterly confused. Remembering the original story where these two were bitter enemies, she marvels at how different their dynamic seems in reality. To Evelyn's surprise, the prince laughs and cheerfully asks if the duke treats her well, wondering if he buys her plenty of delicious food. Before Evelyn can even finish explaining that the duke takes excellent care of her, Hardion's possessive side flares up. With a dark, menacing aura, he physically pulls the prince away and tells him to get lost. Sighing at the duke's overprotective hostility, the prince complains about his innocent intentions being misunderstood. He quickly reassures him that he only approached them to make a special introduction. Guided forward by the prince, an elegant woman steps out from the crowd. Evelyn's eyes widen in sheer shock as she realizes who is standing before them. With her soft pink hair and striking gold eyes, there is no mistaking her. Evelyn is looking directly at Princess Reina, the original female lead of this story. In the pages of the original story, Kale's feelings toward Princess Reina were described as an intense, dark possessiveness, an overwhelming desire that consumed him from the moment they met. But standing in the grand ballroom, the reality of their meeting unfolds under the glittering chandeliers. As the pink-haired princess draws near, Evelyn watches the scene play out with bated breath, waiting for the fated spark to ignite. Evelyn is instantly captivated by Reina's breathtaking appearance. With her soft pastel hair and warm golden eyes, the princess looks every bit the absolute beauty described in the novel. Watching them, Evelyn immediately worries that Kale has already fallen for the princess. If the original plot has truly begun, she fears her own plans are completely doomed. Yet, as she sneaks a glance at the Duke, his face remains completely expressionless. He stands there unresponsive and entirely unreacting, leaving Evelyn utterly confused by his lack of interest. Her confusion only deepens when Kale casually lets out a quiet yawn. Instead of being captivated, he seems entirely bored by the princess's presence. Observing his cold demeanor, Evelyn realizes his expression holds absolutely zero desire. Before she can ponder this further, the introduction begins. The Duke is formally introduced to Princess Reina of Kalon, followed by Evelyn herself. Evelyn offers a polite bow to Her Highness, but as the princess looks back, a sudden hesitation hangs in the air. Princess Reina softly introduces herself, admitting she still struggles with the imperial language. When Evelyn politely acknowledges this, Reina blushes and explains she is studying hard, instantly charming Evelyn with her earnest sweetness. Before they can speak further, the blonde nobleman interrupts, letting Kale know the Empress wishes to see him away from the loud ballroom. Sensing her chance to step away from Kale, Evelyn quickly insists she will be perfectly fine on her own. Entrusting the princess to Evelyn's care, the nobleman bids them farewell. As Kale is led away, Evelyn eagerly accepts the duty, relieved to have some distance from the intimidating Duke. Now left completely alone, an awkward silence hangs between them. Evelyn realizes she is suddenly one-on-one with the novel's original heroine, unsure of how to break the ice. Breaking the silence, Reina shyly looks up and offers a sudden compliment, telling Evelyn how pretty she is. She adds that she finds Evelyn's green eyes beautiful, clear, and transparent. Flustered by the unexpected praise, Evelyn frantically returns the compliment, comparing the princess's golden eyes to sweet honey. Reina smiles warmly, completely melting Evelyn's heart with her pure, gentle reaction. Reina admits that she has felt incredibly lonely without any friends. Reaching out to gently hold Evelyn's hands, she asks if they can become closer, hoping to build a real connection. Evelyn enthusiastically agrees to the proposal, thrilled at the prospect of becoming friends. Any lingering tension between them completely vanishes as she pumps her fists with genuine excitement. Curiously, Evelyn asks about the princess's hobbies, discovering that Reina loves reading romance books. Excited by this common interest, Evelyn suggests they name their recent favorites at the same time. On the count of 3, they both shout out the exact same title. Realizing they share a love for the same tragic story, the two girls instantly bond, crying together over the sad, beautiful ending. Evelyn and Raina continue to gush over their favorite romance web novels, completely lost in their own world. Nearby, other nobles watch the two girls in absolute confusion, unable to follow their passionate debate about tropes and regretful male leads. The conversation shifts when the princess asks about Evelyn's ideal type. Evelyn eagerly describes a kind, handsome man with a perfect build and a gentle smile, listing a hilarious amount of highly specific details. When Evelyn asks in return, Raina confesses that she prefers charismatic bad boys. Blushing softly, the princess admits she has already found her ideal type since arriving at the imperial palace. Overjoyed by this sudden romantic development, Evelyn excitedly begs to know who it is. Leaning in close, Raina gently cups her hand and prepares to whisper the secret directly into Evelyn's ear. As the princess begins to speak her crush's name, Kale is shown walking back through the hall. Raina shyly admits that the one she has fallen for is none other than Duke Hardian himself. Standing in the grand hall, Princess Raina beams with excitement as she admits her feelings for Duke Hardian. Her sudden confession leaves Evelyn completely speechless. Evelyn's mind spirals into panic as the princess cheerfully confirms her affection is indeed for the handsome Duke Hardian. The sheer weight of the situation begins to set in. Raina gushes about wanting to marry the Duke, leaving Evelyn paralyzed by the sheer awkwardness of the moment. She frantically wonders how to navigate this sudden twist. Standing in silence, Evelyn realizes just how awkward the situation has become. Telling the princess that she is already engaged to the Duke feels impossible in this moment. Evelyn worries that staying silent will make her feel like she is deceiving the princess. But then, a sudden realization sparks a new possibility in her mind. If she can successfully pair Kale with the princess, Evelyn realizes she might finally secure her own quiet escape. It seems like the perfect way to break off her engagement. Imagining a future where she quietly leaves the couple behind, Evelyn feels a wave of relief. She might actually turn this complicated misunderstanding to her advantage. The tense atmosphere is broken when Kate arrives, carrying drinks and calling out to Evelyn. She stands surprised by the unfamiliar guest next to her friend. Evelyn introduces Princess Raina, who politely greets Kate despite her limited imperial language skills. The two hit it off immediately, much to Evelyn's relief. Evelyn hopes to quietly change the subject while the others chat, but Kate suddenly asks when the wedding is. The unexpected question leaves Evelyn completely frozen. Kate's sudden reveal of the engagement leaves everyone shocked. Evelyn frantically tries to silence her, but it is too late. Raina is stunned to learn that Evelyn is the one marrying Duke Hardian. Evelyn immediately panics. She worries that this sudden revelation will ruin their new friendship, leaving the princess to resent her for keeping the engagement a secret. Meanwhile, Raina is completely caught off guard. Her jaw drops in shock as she finally realizes that the man she wanted to marry is already betrothed to her new friend. Instead of being angry, Raina bursts into frantic, bumbling apologies. Flailing her arms in embarrassment, she begs Evelyn to believe that she had absolutely no idea they were engaged. Grabbing Evelyn's hands, Raina looks up with tearful, pleading eyes. She desperately asks if Evelyn can ever forgive her for making such a terrible mistake. Evelyn is instantly disarmed by the princess's adorable distress. Looking at Raina's teary, pitiful expression, she realizes it is impossible to stay upset with her. Their awkward encounter is cut short when a palace attendant arrives, summoning Raina to the Empress. Relieved that the air is cleared, the two quickly promise to meet again soon. As night falls, Evelyn finally leaves the palace in the Duke's carriage. Drained by the evening's chaotic events, she sits in silence, staring out into the dark. Kale remains quiet, prompting Evelyn to wonder what he could be thinking. She nervously questions whether he is already picturing the lovely princess in his head. Her silent worrying is interrupted when Kale speaks up, observing that she is acting rather strange. Evelyn quickly tries to play it cool under his sharp gaze. Kale confronts Evelyn about her nervous, guilty glances. Trying to deflect the awkwardness, she brings up Princess Reina, prompting him to ask what about her. Evelyn praises the princess's beauty, describing her soft hair and striking eyes. Though she fidgets nervously, she pushes forward, trying to gauge Kale's interest in the foreign princess. Recalling the novel's descriptions, Evelyn imagines the romantic spark that is supposed to fly between them. She wonders if Kale is already dreaming of those sweet, honey-like eyes. Kale breaks her train of thought by asking if the princess's eyes were golden instead of green. His confusion leaves Evelyn completely bewildered, wondering why he would ask such a thing. Leaning close, Kale gently lifts Evelyn's chin with his gloved hand. He gazes deeply into her green eyes, asking why he would care about golden ones. Evelyn's heart races, completely caught off guard by his sudden proximity. Staring back at him, Evelyn tries to process his words. As she connects the dots, a sudden, shocking realization hits her. She begins to wonder if the feared Duke is actually colorblind. Inside the quiet carriage, Evelyn wonders if Kale remembers the golden-eyed woman from his past, studying his face as they sit across from one another. His intense crimson gaze fixes directly on her. The sudden, silent scrutiny prompts a flustered Evelyn to ask what he is staring at. Noticing her quiet tension, he remarks that she is overthinking yet again. His sudden sigh leaves, her cheeks flushed as she touches her face in embarrassment. With a racing heart, she realizes just how difficult he is to understand. Outside, their carriage continues its quiet journey under the moonlit sky. The next morning, Evelyn wakes up in her grand bedroom after a peaceful sleep. She sits up in bed and calls out for her maid, Emily. Instead of her personal maid, other members of the household staff inform her that Emily has gone to the greenhouse to help the gardener. Evelyn walks through the sunlit pathways of the estate grounds, heading toward the grand glass structure of the greenhouse to search for her maid. Stepping inside the warm structure, she catches sight of dark hair peeking out from the greenery and wonders who is hiding among the plants. Inside the glasshouse, Evelyn finds Karen, kneeling among the flowers. She politely greets him and asks if he has seen her maid, Emily. Karen mentions seeing the maid head toward the hunting grounds to repair a broken structure. Curious about his own presence there, Evelyn asks what he is doing. To her surprise, he calmly explains that he is collecting insects, though he normally dissects plants and small animals. The casual confession sends a chill down her spine. She remembers his dark reputation for dissection, just as he happily holds out a live butterfly for her to see. Up close, the sight fills her with deep dread. Terrified, Evelyn lets out a scream and runs away as fast as she can, leaving the young boy standing completely alone and confused in the greenhouse. Seeking safety, she hides behind a tree to catch her breath, but the vivid image of the fluttering insect still haunts her mind. She soon realizes her panic has led her all the way to the hunting grounds. Looking around the locked gate, she wonders if Emily is nearby. An unpleasant sound breaks the silence, drawing her attention. Peeking around a large tree trunk, she spots a figure kneeling over a black bird and wonders if it is her father-in-law. It is indeed Carson, a man known for his disturbing obsession with taxidermy. Smiling to himself, he gently holds the creature and whispers how pitiful it is. As he prepares to work on the bird, a horrified Evelyn takes a step back. But a loud snap of a twig beneath her foot immediately alerts him to her presence. Startled by the sudden noise of the twig snapping, Carson turns his intense blue gaze toward her in surprise. Terrified by his taxidermy work, Evelyn screams a frantic apology and runs away as fast as she can, heading back to the mansion. Gasping for breath, she collapses onto the polished floor inside the quiet mansion. Her hands tremble against the rug, her mind racing as she stares at the butterfly-decorated jewelry on her wrists, reminding her of Karen's creepy butterfly. Frustrated and crying out of sheer exhaustion, Evelyn wonders where her maid Emily could possibly be. Her panic is suddenly cut short when she hears faint voices nearby, prompting her to stand up and investigate the dark corridor. Peering cautiously through the slightly open double doors, she catches sight of a silver-haired woman sitting gracefully inside the room. It is Catherine Hardian who greets the newcomers with a serene yet deeply unsettling smile. Before her sit several young girls, all of whom are only 11 years old. The head maid steps forward to present a list containing their personal details, prepared for the noble lady's cold inspection. Evelyn is chilled to the bone as she recalls the terrifying rumors about Catherine, a woman who allegedly bathes in the blood of young maids to preserve her youth. Looking at the list, the lady calmly asks who will attend to her bath today. Overwhelmed by sheer horror at the grim realization, Evelyn knows she must run away immediately before she is discovered. Shaking with fear, she stumbles backward and collapses onto the floor, her heart pounding frantically. But before she can make her escape, a firm hand suddenly grips her shoulder from the dark shadows behind her. A cold, commanding voice calls out her name, demanding to know what she is doing in here.